With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Butt Kicker, are ready to race.
The Lionheart Racing Series touches down in Silverstone for its first race on this side of the pond. It's been an extraordinary season for the Lionheart King Adam Blocker as he continues his quest for a fourth consecutive Lionheart IndyCar Series title. He's been the dominant force in 2021 with 4 consecutive victories in the last 4 races, setting more Lionheart records. Will the streak continue, or can anyone stop Blocker as we make our way to the home of British motorsports? This is Silverstone. This is the GRAAFix Esports Silverstone Grand Prix presented by Minus273. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, along in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth is Justin Prince. TV cameras provided to us by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com, with some additional car cameras designed by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to racespot.tv/Indy to follow along with live timing powered by our partners at ATVO. Let's dive straight into our Butt Kicker pre-race show because, Justin, this race marks the halfway point of the season, and what a season it's been so far. 9 seasons this IndyCar competition has been going on, but this has well and truly been one of the biggest and one of the toughest that the Lionheart team has had to deal with. It's had so many strong competitors. We head to the home of British motorsports for the very first time today.
Absolutely, it's brought many challenges for our competitors throughout this calendar, especially with the big ovals and the mix of the smaller ovals, as well as challenging road courses. And this could be one of the most challenging road courses on the schedule this season, because this is a track that these drivers haven't been to before. This is also a track that is also going to test the ability of drivers to save their tires and be able to handle the fast speed corners around this facility. It's going to be a thrilling race tonight. It's just going to be the matter, though, of can these drivers keep their cars underneath them, and can they save their stuff to be able to be good on the long run?
34 laps. It's a very open fuel window here, and of course you mentioned tires. The Lionheart Series does require both the use of the primary and the alternate tire when we come to a road course. 34 laps does mean there's quite a bit of strategy on the table, not just in fuel but the tires as well. Justin, I've got to ask you though, this incredible run from Adam Blocker, it's not just the last 4 races where he's taken the checkered flag and made his way into HyperX victory lane. It's a string of top 5 finishes that goes all the way back to September of last year.
It's been incredible to say the very least. He's proven he's one of the top open-wheel drivers on the service with his skills because he's very consistent, he keeps the car clean, and he's able to pick the right strategy each time. That's been able to help him execute for this type of a series, and that's why he's one of the best drivers to ever set foot in Lionheart Racing Series competition. It's going to be difficult to stop the run, to say the very least, though, when you have it stretched back that far. And this is the type of race where many of the fellow competitors expect Blocker to be on the pace once more.
And I mean, 89 career starts, that will make 90 here today. He's got 63 top 5 finishes. That is an extraordinary run. 27 career victories. But let's talk a little bit about Season 9, because it is a season where Adam Blocker is expected to also become the driver with the most laps led, surpassing Dan Guerin with 2,567. Almost halfway through, Justin. Only one of our Triple Crowns is done. We've got a bit of a break coming up, a couple of weeks before we head to the Texas Motor Speedway in the Lone Star State. But after that, it gets interesting. We go to Phillip Island. So many great tracks here in the second half of this season.
You also have a second Triple Crown coming up in September at Michigan International Speedway. That's going to be a thrilling race, to say the very least. But you also have difficult tracks like Twin Rainbow Motegi. You have Mosport mixed in there as well in the recent weeks after that halfway point of the season. And if you want to win a championship, you have to be able to perform at the various different types of tracks. And it's going to be a major challenge in the next few months to be able to get some good momentum if you want to keep up with Adam Blocker in the standings.
And we did maybe wonder as to the schedule that Blocker would have. Of course, a trackside engineer in the NTT IndyCar series. It does look as though Blocker's schedule has worked out in his favor, and we will indeed see him on August 11th from the Lone Star State. Here's a look at your driver's standings presented by Butt Kicker, and well, that points gap now is almost 200 points. And if anything now, Justin, it's more interesting for second position, where you've got about 4 drivers separated by just 50 points.
Connor Harrington's been very efficient on the ovals, has shown some good speed as well in the road courses. Henry Bennett's been improving each and every week in this series, especially with the skill set he's shown across the iRacing platform. And don't forget, Joshua Chin came away with a victory at Mid-Ohio just a couple months back. He's somebody that's been very quick on the road courses. All those drivers have a chance for good finishes today at Silverstone and chances to get valuable points. But it's all going to come down, I think, to if they're going to choose the right strategy. Ryan Oates, keep in mind, is also in that mix as well, who has been improving consistently in the past couple weeks, especially on his oval side. So it's going to be really intriguing indeed how that battle for second through fifth fares out, because all those drivers are strong when it comes to road courses and strong when it comes to their consistency in Lionheart competition.
Andrew Kinsella sits in 6th. He will make his 100th career Lionheart IndyCar start here today. I wanted to mention the team standings because you saw it's very much an adrenaline and private label team hype show up there in the top 10. But you can see the gap, which was slowly building out for the private label team hype, Justin, has slowly come down. Adrenaline Motorsports have managed to keep in and around the mix of the front of these championships, but at the end of the day, Connor Harrington, Joshua Chin, and Jason Brophy, they have been so consistent in 2021.
And teamwork makes everything work well when it comes to an organization such as theirs, and they've been able to execute their strategies where they've been in sync, especially when it comes to the road courses with Harrington and Chin, where they've been near identical in some of their paces in some of these events. But on the oval side is where they've been really able to stretch out that gap, because all 3 of their team members are strong on that side of the Lionheart schedule. For Adrenaline Motorsports Red to close up that gap today, it's going to take a little bit more effort to be able to get yourself in the top 5. It's going to be interesting to see which drivers can get themselves to that mark from that side.
So that's a look at the team standings presented by HyperX. Here's the Rookie Championship presented by Butt Kicker. And well, really, Henry Bennett, Jason Brophy, those were 2 names synonymous with the iRacing IndyCar community that we expected to be at the front. But drivers like Lionel Kalisto and Matt Taylor have not made those 2 drivers have an easy run of things so far in 2021. Heading to Silverstone, Kalisto and Taylor have very quick pace on the road courses as well.
Now keep my eye in particular for Taylor today, because he has been very much gaining a lot of momentum across the iRacing platform, especially in Lionheart competition. with the Retro Series as well in his road course abilities. There is a good chance we see Taylor try and leapfrog one, maybe two of these drivers today, depending on how he fares out here at this racetrack. So there's a chance we see some swapping going about in the rookie standings after today.
And so that's a look at our championship. Let's talk a little bit about the series itself, with the series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code Minus273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. Here today, Justin, we're in the 8th year of the Lionheart Racing Series Season 9, and of course the Dallara IR18, the main chassis in competition here in this IndyCar Championship. The DW12, the Legacy DW12, makes an appearance in the Speedway Series, but this is a custom-fixed setup with in-car tools, and here today it's going to be vital to keep on top of those tools. Front ARB is going to be your friend to try and make these tires last.
Was talking with a couple drivers in preparation for this race, and they specifically talked about how they were trying to get themselves figuring out, okay, how do we get these tools to execute around these tough corners? Because you have to keep in mind, some of the drivers are going to be dealing with the potential of air wash and dirty air, but also need to be able to carry a ton of speed when riding behind somebody. There's a good chance we see a lot of passing if these drivers are able to execute with their in-car tools and are able to find that right balance between being aggressive and being conservative. Find that right mixture to be able to get the proper speed without going over the limit or too close to the conservative side of things. So it's going to be important to know exactly how you utilize those tools today. And they're going to be very busy, Arjuna, utilizing them as well.
And I think if perceptive people might have picked up that I only talked about the front ARB. That's because the rear ARB in this setup is disconnected, so you can be wheeling that adjustment as much as you want, but it's really not going to do anything unless you have some placebo. Talking a little bit about this first trip to the home of British motor racing in all of Lionheart competition, the Retro Series and the Lotus 79s will touch down here in Silverstone in a couple of months' time for another road race on their schedule, but it's a very interesting race that we've got here, Justin. Some new faces making their debuts in 2021. Strategy, we talked about it earlier. It's going to be so important to try and make those black tires work, be on them on the right time, and make sure in 34 laps, with I think it's a 13-lap fuel window, you come down and execute on pit road.
A lot of the drivers I spoke to were expecting, actually, the reds to really burn up fairly quickly, and for drivers to, in turn, try and push longer on the blacks, possibly to make sure that they didn't overexert their tires. So keep an eye on that for today. But you mentioned the new faces coming into play. Some very well-deserved drivers are getting their opportunities to be able to race. Barrett Rolfe, we've seen in the Lionheart Speedway Series, show some good speed. He's at a track that he was familiar with the GT Academy. Here, ready to get going for tonight. Michael O'Brien, going to be interesting to keep an eye on him as an independent. Alexis Newsom has shown some great potential in the Speedway Series as well as one of its top points getters throughout the season so far. It's going to be interesting how those newcomers fare out, but of course, you can't talk about tonight without once again talking about Blocker. Can he make it? 5 wins in a row tonight? It's not going to be easy, but there is a good chance with the expectations that are along his line tonight.
And let's talk a little bit more about this track. 3.5 miles, give or take, almost 6 full kilometers, one of the longest tracks across the entire 2021 schedule for the Lionheart Racing Series. Such a historic venue. Of course, it underwent a bit of a renovation recently. Now you start on this interestingly short front straightaway, one of the shortest runs down into Turn 1 in Formula 1. You head right, then in towards Village. That's that new complex that leads you back on towards that Brooklyn straight, or I should say the back straightaway in towards Brooklands. And then, of course, the scene of lots of controversy just a couple of weeks ago, Justin, the old turn number 1, Cops Corner. That's turn number 9 right at the top of the screen right now. You can go side by side there, but you want to be careful, not just because of contact, but because of slowdown penalties as well.
It's going to be an area where you may see drivers be bold indeed to go side by side of that section, but it's the matter of trying to be careful along that section, because if you set up that section well, you can potentially get that run towards Maggots and Beckett's, and potentially from Chapel down the Hainer straight to Stowe. That's going to be a very active spot on the racetrack as well today, Arjuna. So it's going to be important to make sure you execute the corners, especially the high-speed sections, if you want to get passes done with so many long straightaways and opportunities to pick up draft.
And so qualifying is only about 90 seconds or so from coming to a close. Drivers get 10 full minutes and 4 flying lap times to set their fastest qualifying lap, and 1:39.436 is the benchmark. And well, the gap at the front of the field is astonishing, Justin. I mean, you're talking about 6/100ths of a second between Blocker, Harrington, and Chin. This has got all the makings of a very fun race. I will say, 12 months ago, the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship came here, and yes, I know open setups versus fixed setups is a totally different ballgame, but Adam and myself, we had a incredible race, because multiple times side by side trying to make stuff work. Blocker is going to practice what is going to be a crucial pit entry as Joshua Chin puts the benchmark down, a 1:39.262. He will line up on pole position.
And Chin has been doing that in the practices throughout the night, where he's been able to hit that consistent mark inside the 1:39.2s, able to do it again in qualifying, and that's going to get him valuable track position. We talked about it earlier with him and his speed at Mid-Ohio. There's a good chance that it's going to be a fun battle between Chin and Blocker, because both of those drivers have been able to consistently hit their marks here at Silverstone tonight in preparation for this race.
And let's give a few shout-outs, Justin. Michael O'Brien, he's in the top 5. It was a disappointing Lionheart Retro Series race for him about a week ago as they went to Motegi. Debut, he'll start in 5th. Alexis Newsom in the top 10.
Impressive from Alexis Newsom indeed. And Robert Malechka III also jumping up inside the top 10 just about, as the last of the drivers record some of their times. Aaron Morgan as well, give credit to him. He's been trying to get himself used to this track, especially after the first few laps once the tires are heated up. And once you get some wear built in, he's going to be somebody to keep an eye on in those first few laps to see if he can keep up the speed on the long run.
Let's go ahead and take a look at your starting grid here from the home of British Motorsports. What a qualifying session we just had. Drivers coming in with those times at the very end. And here is your starting grid presented by Butt Kicker. Joshua Chin won at Mid-Ohio just a couple of rounds ago for the private label Team Hype. He'll take us to the green flag, a 1:39.262, almost 2 full tenths in front of Adam Blocker for Adrenaline Powerslide. Connor Harrington is Blocker's main championship rival. He'll be inside of Aaron Morgan, always quick on these road courses. The Lionheart Retro Series King Ryan Otis lines up alongside Michael O'Brien, making his debut on the outside of row number 3. Matt Taylor, Henry Bennett, 7th and 8th positions, with Brian Carey and Robert Malechka on the edge of the top 10. Alexis Newsom has been a revelation in the Lionheart Speedway Series. She'll line up inside of Mike Rasmas, the Lionheart Retro Series points leader. Tyler Graf, Brian Beard, 13th and 14th, with Jason Brophy in that crucial battle for the team championships, lining up in 15th with Adam Fraser alongside Andrew Kinsella, embroiled in that battle for the team's championship. 100th career start for him here today. He'll be inside of Barrett Rolfe, the series newcomer. Chris Fowler, Lionel Kalisto on the edge of the top 20, with Jay Brandt and Stefan Larkamp sharing row number 11. Matt Houston and Scott Holmes in 23rd and 24th position, with Tony Showen, the final car to set a qualifying lap time, 25th, with Chris Lanini returning to the IndyCar Series after a bit of a break. He'll be in 26th, with Mike Rigney in 27th. Christopher Reagan in the number 19 car rounds out our 28 car field. As always here on Lionheart Competitions, we have a number of onboard cameras, so as the cars begin to roll, let's quickly take this time. It's not a long time that we've got to get through these, but Tyler Graf has the GRAAFix Esports onboard, world-class design from real world to virtual. Visit GRAAFixEsports.com.
With the HyperX onboard camera, it's Ryan Otis. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
We'll take a look at the remaining cameras once we get that opportunity, because here we go. Competition, commitment, excitement This is Lionheart, and this is the GRAAFix Esports Silverstone Grand Prix presented by -273. It's a very early jump from Joshua Chin. As we fly our way down in towards turn number 1, you can see a bit of chaos and carnage in the background of the shot as the top 7 have slowly tried to break away as they dive their way down into this village complex for the very first time. Blocker goes defensive from Harrington behind. Henry Bennett locks up, goes deep into the corner, but safely through the first turn. I think we managed to get all 28 cars through. We come onto this back straightaway. Who's going to get on the push to pass to try and make something happen?
And right now, Blocker is struggling a little bit in this first sector, especially on corner exit compared to before. Chin has also been willing to use a bit of the runoff section after locking up some of his tires. So this is already looking like Blocker is going to have to be more defensive than offensive and try and hold on to the second position.
It was an over-under attempted from Connor Harrington, nothing doing as we come down into the old turn number 1. That's the old pit road on the inside of the corner. Chin already 7/10 clear as Blocker mounts the inside curb. Not necessarily what you want to do, but it can sometimes just rotate that car that little bit more. They throw themselves into this amazing complex of corners, Maggots and Beckett's, and then through Chapel and on towards this Fame Hangar Straight. Already that gap is 7/10 of a second. Blocker did use a push to pass to try and defend from the cars behind. Ryan Otis, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, ducking and weaving on that button, looking to the inside of Aaron Morgan, nothing doing there. We will complete lap number 1 with 28 Indy cars still out there on the track and only 14 seconds separating them.
An incredible first lap, especially with the pace right from the get-go from Chin. It's going to be really intriguing, though, if he can keep that cleaner and try and break away for the rest of the tow with some of the other drivers, because Blocker is not giving up easily here.
And maybe it was just cold tires that are going to be the struggle for Blocker. I mean, maybe the other thing to consider at this point, Justin, yes, we're only on lap 2 out of 34, but it's only a 13-lap fuel window. It's a very long track here. Maybe Blocker is just saving those red mark tires.
That has to be the thought process here, because I was talking with Blocker before tonight's race, and he mentioned to me how easy it was to burn up the tires here, especially if you push too hard. So it's a track. You need to keep those tires cool. A few drivers as well were struggling with tire overheating on the Reds in particular. So that is something to consider for some of these drivers, especially in some of these battles.
Through Luffield, Lionel Kalisto is a man on a mission. 3 positions gained since the start of the race. He works himself then past Andrew Kinsella. That's a 17th and 18th position. Just trying to take a look at my timing screen and figure out what happened. Relatively clean up there at the front. The top 6 really haven't swapped around positions at all. Henry Bennett has gotten past Matt Taylor. That's for 7th and 8th position. It did look as though as we came to that start, Justin, it was a bit chaotic further back in the pack, and I think on the edge of the top 10 there's just been a bit of switching around from cars starting on the outside getting jumped by cars on the inside down into turn number 1.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple drivers actually hit some of the turtles, in fact, Arjuna, so those drivers were actually lifting off the ground coming into the starting zone, which kind of, I think, hurt a few of them. But curious to see how some of these strategies play out in terms of tires, because a few drivers did start on the Blackwall tires. Barrett Rolfe is among those drivers electing to mix things up on strategy to begin the race.
Left-hand side, you can see it's 15th and 16th. Those are the first cars to start on this primary black mark tire. Barrett Rolfe on debut here in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, coming off his debut victory in the Speedway competition. From where else other than the Brickyard? He locks up, goes deep. It will present the over-under to Kalisto, but parks it on the apex, and if anything, causes a bit of a check-up behind. Jay Braun looks to the inside of Andrew Kinsella, working our way down onto this back straightaway. Some incredible action to start things off here, but it's a long race, and I think drivers just have to be patient. Kalisto uses that push to pass to get down the inside. He's now up into 16th position.
With how hard he's pushing, he's got to think about how hard he's utilizing these tires and burning up these tires possibly. Is look at this. Aaron Morgan trying to make a move on Connor Harrington. Not the easiest move to make, though, into Cops on the outside line. Has a bit of trouble.
That is Stefan Larkamp, I believe, for the Alcantech NHR Esports crew. But we'll get to the replays, I think, in just a couple of moments. We're just trying to get things to calm down here. Morgan was on the button to try and, I think, get around the outside of Cop's corner. It's a very brave place to try and make a pass happen. you don't get what you don't try. Now the gap, by the way, between your race leaders is only still about 6.5 tenths of a second. They have managed to break away from Connor Harrington, and of course, Justin, that's the more interesting gap to look at when it comes to the championship standings.
Especially since Harrington, if he wants to try and chip away at the gap, needs to be able to keep up with Blocker and potentially try and make a move on Blocker. So it's not going to be easy, especially with Blocker setting purple lap times, as you see with the ATVO fastest lap. So right now, this is to where you need to find a way to get back within drafting distance. Hope that they battle a little bit up front. Hope that they burn up some of their tires, possibly trying to push against one hour Chin and Blocker. So that is right now having to be a bit of the focal point if I'm Harrington right now.
Trying to see what happened to Tyler Graaf, because you can see, well, you could see for a moment. There you go, 8 positions lost for the number 26 car. Not sure if he's gone off the road or anything necessarily, as Kalisto is looking very, very racy on those red mark tires, trying to get past. That's Adam Fraser in front of him, and I think here comes the move down in towards Cops. Let's jump on board with the number 97 and the Sector 5, Delara IR18, in towards this old turn number 1. It's a brave place to try and make a pass, and Fraser is going to force it the long way around for Kalisto. Nothing doing this time around. Kalisto now has to wait, but he might try something in towards Maggots and Beckett's.
Just has to be able to wait for the run, though, if you want to make this properly in the Hayner strain. This is the tough part, is the aero wash in this particular section, where it is possible to line up tire to tire, but you have to utilize those in-car tools to be able to get the proper rotation. As you can see, just able to line it up perfectly to get to the inside.
This is Stowe. It's slightly off camber once you get to the mid part of the corner. Kalisto gets a big wiggle, able to hold on to that one, but Fraser will maintain control of the position as Jay Brunt deep under the brakes in towards this final chicane. It really is horrible trying to avoid those anti-cut curves, but to the inside of Barrett Rolfe he will look. Andrew Kinsella running very wide into the runoff area. Side by side they'll go in towards turn number 1. Kinsella into 18th position.
And for Kinsella, able to stop the bleeding a little bit in those lost positions, but you have to wonder what Kalisto's tire situation is going to be towards the end of this run, with how he's been trying to battle, and especially with bobbles like that. And keep in mind, he's battling with the Blackwell tire drivers and has been really utilizing that push to pass. A lot of push to pass is utilized in this first run.
He is down to just 4 of his 10 left to use in the next 19 laps, as this time it's Fraser going a little bit deep, and these guys really are getting checked up at this point. 2.7 seconds behind the car in front. That is Jason Brophy, and of course Andrew Kinsella in that battle for the team championship. We'll be hoping to get the move on as soon as possible, because for Fraser it's working out very, very nicely, because black mark tires, they will be slower, but if you can hold these cars behind, might find yourself in a pretty nice position come the end of this race. Let's take a look at what happened to Tyler Graaf. You can see him on the left-hand side of the screen, and you were saying, Justin, potentially a time penalty here for the 26 car.
This will be towards the start of the race. Yes, he had indicated on the radio that he had gotten a time penalty, and when you get that sort of situation where you end up cutting the course, you have to give the time back. As you can see, going a little bit on the inside of some of the rumble strips, and in turn has to sacrifice some of the positions and loses a lot of them as a result from 13th starting position.
And that was all 4 tires basically inside the white line, so that explains it. What happened to Larkamp? This is working his way through Luffield. Is he just going to get on the power? Yes, he is. He's on those black mark tires, so a little bit less grip at the start of the run. At the same time, you can't afford to light up the rears like that, as tire temperatures would have gone skyrocketing at least for a few seconds. Gap out front is still just 0.6 of a second. Adam Blocker is keeping the King of Chins very honest, and if anything, the lap times going back and forth between these two drivers. Their fastest laps, Justin, we saw the fastest lap for Blocker, a 39.484. Well, for Joshua Chin, a 39.496. 8,000 between these two drivers.
And keep in mind as well, the fall-off is already reaching nearly 1 full second to Arjuna. So these competitors are dealing with a fair bit of tire wear on these reds. And eventually you have to wonder, how's that pace going to fare out with the drivers on the Blackwell tires that are running in the mid-pack? Because those drivers, you have to think, are going to have problems.
Kinsella, well, it's not exactly what we saw between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, but Barrett Rolfe on series debut has been spun around by the Centurion Andrew Kinsella. It was getting hectic, and Adam Fraser is going to go for a drive through the grass. Silverstone has hosted rally cross action in the past, but Fraser is having a big wiggle as he rejoins the track. Let's go straight to the RaceSpot TV replay machine here, Justin, and take a look at this one.
Just a little bit earlier in the brakes that time for Barrett Rolfe with that grip difference compared to the Reds, and Kinsella don't think was expecting that there with how much of a bit of a slow up was in that situation. You can see the little bit harder on the brakes and a bit contact right there. Kinsella ends up getting to the back end of the machine.
And let's see what happened to Fraser here. Does he get loose, or is it something else? Yeah, a little bit loose, but it didn't even look like he necessarily was in full control of that car coming in towards that very fast Maggots and Beckett's complex. And so now Adam Fraser will find himself down in 22nd position. Barrett Rolfe in 24th. They will be bitterly disappointed. Still lots of potential to work their way up through this field. Let's turn our attention back out front, at least for the time being, Justin, because it has been a chaotic opening 6 and a bit laps of this race as we work lap 7. The gap between Blocker and Harrington now up to 3 full seconds.
And this continues to be a situation where it's probably not the best case for Harrington, but it's still a spot where Harrington is getting to where he's nearly breaking away from the drought. So that's the bright side for the 44 machine, is he's in a good spot inside that top 3 to be able to minimize any points lost. The interesting thing for Blocker is going to be how he plays things out the rest of this race, because I think, as we were talking about earlier, possibly saving, trying to make sure he banks those push-to-passes for later on, keep Chin within arm's reach. Just try and keep him in a good position to be able to scrap later on in the race, to be able to pounce.
And I tell you what, let's talk briefly about the weather. It's not as warm as maybe you would think it might be in the peak of the British summer, but 25 degrees in the air, 42 on the track with 11 kilometers an hour gusts of wind. Not necessarily the strongest, but especially through some of those high-speed complexes, Justin, it will be blowing these cars around. But when it comes to the tires, the cooler conditions are usually the more favorable it is for the red mark tires. Just one more factor that will make them work as Chin is on the button trying to pull away. Gap now 1.2 seconds.
Absolutely, and those conditions are looking like they're starting to stabilize a little bit in terms of the tire wear numbers, where for a majority of the field, they've evened out to that 1.5 second of fall off range with the cooler temperatures on those reds. So it's looking like it's in a good box for that situation for those drivers right now.
And I tell you what, it was a pretty short pace lap because you start on that hangar straight coming down in towards that very tricky village complex. Let's take this opportunity to quickly work our way through our final 2 onboard cameras, because of course 4 sponsored ones, and then every single IndyCar in today's field has our onboard looks provided by Esteban Ballo and TrackCams22.com. Matt Houston has the -273 on board, the premier name in karting gloves. Visit -273.biz.
With the Clipping That Apex on board, it's Brian Carey, your home for custom motorsports art. For more information, visit clippingthatapex.com.
The Canadian had a pretty good view of some side-by-side action in towards Stowe Corner. That was Michael O'Brien defending from Henry Bennett. O'Brien is making his series debut in the IndyCar. Had a very impressive qualifying performance and holding up a contender for the championship. Henry Bennett stuck in 7th position.
And right now it's just looking like the aero lock is starting to come into play a little bit for a couple of these drivers, where one driver gets the draft off an aero driver, then the driver behind gets the draft of the car in front, and so forth and so on. And it seems when you get to that spot, it can be difficult to try and leapfrog. It takes the right amount of skill to be able to do things right, and Bennett getting really defensive here trying to squeeze.
That's Matt Taylor trying to sweep around the outside. It will become the inside of the next left-right-hand hairpin. But on the outside, you get that grip and that run down in towards Kopp's corner. They are still side by side. I think Matt Taylor might have to concede heading in towards Kopp's, because Bennett does have that superior momentum. It's not much between the two cars. They're still side by side in through turn number 9. But there goes Henry Bennett. He holds on to 7th position.
And the frustrating thing for Bennett is that potentially just lost him the draft to O'Brien. So to be able to get it back, he might have to utilize a push to pass or two to get within 1 second of the 45 once more. But when it comes to Lionel Kalisto, I'm surprised on how those Reds have been holding up with even the track conditions on Kalisto, with how hard he's been trying to fly through the field, +5 on the race.
He is having a very impressive run. The biggest mover up 5 on the day, but Jay Brandt just behind about 2 and a bit seconds is also up 5, as in front Brophy runs a little bit deep. Brophy is a bit more competitive on the ovals. I hope Jason won't mind me saying that. Definitely a little bit more comfortable. So strong when it comes to those speedway races, but now on the road courses doing the job for his team, as pit lane is already a very busy place. Take a look as Tyler Graf down onto pit road. He's followed in by Chris Fowler. These cars on the edge of the top 20.
And it was talked about by some drivers that the window was expected to open up on lap 8, as one driver has spun around as well, and Scott Holmes. But to get back to the fuel strategy, this is a window where these drivers might be on the defensive towards the back end of the run.
Let's see what happens here. Is it that curb? No, it's a little bit of just weight transfer at that point in time. And now spins himself around, goes for a bit of a trip through the gravel. Let's jump on board with the number 67 car and take a look from his onboard view. We just see in first gear, gets on the revs just a little bit too hard, and the Sector 5, number 67, goes around. Let's get back to the pit strategy, because we talked about it very briefly, Justin, as Tyler Graf is spending an awfully long amount of time on pit road. My suspicion would be some sort of speeding penalty. It is a very tricky entry onto pit lane, especially when you consider how slow the entry is.
And how early the commitment line is. You can see how far back it is, and this is a track you can easily get caught speeding as well, trying to roll through that section. So this is where it challenges the discipline and how well you've practiced to be able to properly get yourself underneath that speed limit.
Well, as we rejoin the live action, Justin, have you noticed this gap between your race leaders now balloons as Adam Blocker locks the inside front heading into Village Corner to upwards of 2 full seconds. Lionel Kalisto is down on pit road, so some strategy playing out as Stefan Larkamp comes in as well, I do believe. But at this point in time, Joshua Chin is looking very, very strong to try and take away that streak of victories that the Lionheart King has been enjoying.
And it was a few laps ago I noticed this gap start to increase a little bit, Arjuna. Mainly in the arena section is where Blocker is losing oodles of time. In that section, he's lost about a couple seconds alone in these past few laps, where he's just struggling, it seems, to get that back grip and just get that rotation center off. So right now, he has really just been hitting that next layer of fall off to the 141s. Chin is the only driver still running the 140-second bracket.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. As Tony Schowen, the latest car to pull his way down on towards the pit road. Joshua Chin, I mean, look at the gap even to his teammate. Now 5 full seconds, and would not be surprised if we see drivers coming down onto the lane in a few laps' time. Maybe we'll see these faster drivers getting on those black mark tires. Nothing happening, though, out front. Oh, no.
Did you see that? Chin's coming in.
Sorry, Justin. I caught my mistake just because I saw the speed of Joshua Chin really drop. That's how it works on our timing screen, as Aaron Morgan is the next car to come down onto pit road. Interesting call, but clearly Joshua Chin knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm expecting him to potentially go towards the black, stretch this out a little bit, possibly on this window. Aaron Morgan, Henry Bennett also synced on this call. See if he indeed switches the tire compounds here. The Blackwall tire drivers at the moment, by the way, some of them were running in the 141 still, as I believe Chin may have stayed on the Reds, yes.
He has, and now it's an interesting merge back onto track. Release yourself from the limiter and then merge back into the path of oncoming traffic. Chin has found a bit of clean air, and now you would have to assume the undercut is well and truly on for the King of Chins.
Yeah, he might be trying to go with that strategy call where drivers are going to try and push the limit on the blacks, possibly later on. And now this gives Blocker the potential here of coming in possibly this time by. It's going to be interesting if he elects to try and match, or if he tries to mix things up in the strategy after losing those 2 seconds, particularly on corner exit in these past couple laps.
So what Joshua Chin is doing is saving the shorter stint at the end. It will only be about 10 laps that he spends on the blacks, but not necessarily sure I agree with that, Justin, because you'll pay the penalty of having the slower tire as here comes Adam Blocker onto pit road. You'll pay that penalty for those first 10 laps, but you don't get that crossover point where the Reds have well and truly burnt themselves through, and you get the stability that the black mark tire would give you.
Yeah, it's an interesting call to say the very least, but we've seen Chin decide to try and mix things up on strategy before a couple times, Arjuna. So it's something that they have tried before. I'm thinking right now, though, I'm curious to see if Blocker tries to counter-react that by going blacks and then try and push all out on the Reds here. And it's looking like, based on what I'm seeing here, he might be going for the same call as Chin here.
Maybe you have to respond to what the King of Chin's done. Blocker rolls himself off of pit road. Joshua Chin already clear and heading down in towards the village section. Connor Harrington is on the Reds, as is Aaron Morgan, but Michael O'Brien, Matt Taylor, and a number of other cars have made that call to switch themselves onto the black mark tire. Interesting now to see and follow how those strategies shake out, as you can see Henry Bennett, another car to make his way onto the black mark tires, but he's in a bit of a tricky situation behind Matt Taylor and Michael O'Brien. Plenty of time for these strategies to play themselves out, Justin, because we're getting towards the halfway point in today's action.
This race has flown by quickly, and it's definitely looking like these drivers are doing what you were referring to there, trying to minimize the time of the blacks, with it being up to 1 second the difference in terms of laps with the cooler temperature. So that's definitely factored on into how these drivers decided, okay, let's try and play this race out like this to make sure we can minimize that time of the blacks possibly, as well as try and make sure that we match what we can try and do here. Keep in mind the gap expanded to nearly 4 seconds after the pit stops.
Stole the point right out from my mouth as Otis, Carey, and Newsom, the next cars down on towards pit road. Wonder if maybe the undercut really did work nicely, but we'll have to wait and see once Adam Fraser and the rest come down. There goes Fraser. He will get off those black mark tires. He has paid that pain for now and will work his way on to the red mark tire. So lap 15 about to get underway, and it will be Joshua Chin back to the pointy end of the field. And indeed, that gap almost 4 or 5 seconds at this point in time. While we go through this pit stop window, let's talk very briefly, Justin, about our sim experience driver profile. It is the man behind GRAAFix Esports, Tyler Graf. 76 career starts with 25 top 10s and 5 top 5s. He's had some success on the road courses. His best finish dates back to season 7 and the trip to the streets of Detroit and Belle Isle. Obviously always strong when we come to some of these type of races. That pit penalty that he's had to serve is going to put a damper on his hopes here today, but he'll be enjoying what is a very fun track. A man who does a lot of work for the series here.
Yeah, does a lot of graphical work and some impressive work, in fact, as well. He's actually got a special paint scheme, you may notice, with the front wing, having the Dan Weldon Foundation on his wing. So a special scheme for a special race for Tyler.
And if I can try, let me see if we can do this. You can't really tell from here, but he's got a rear wing with the British flag as well, if I'm remembering correctly. Meanwhile, the debut continues to get worse for Barrett Rolfe. This time, it's coming in through the village section, and something has happened to the number 33 car. So let's pull up the RaceBot TV replay machine and take a look at what's happened here. Rolfe is back onto those black mark tires, so clearly feeling a little bit more comfortable on them. Oh, gets onto that inside curb, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, it just hit the turtle, and it just destabilized the car the second he bumped that. Let's see for the onboard. Just tries to follow the flow of the racetrack and turns it a little bit too deep this time. Off the sausage curb. Nothing he can do as that completely destabilizes the weight on the car.
Coming off that very impressive victory in the Speedway Series as they made their pilgrimage to Speedway, Indiana. There's been a switch of positions, by the way. Matt Taylor has gotten on past Michael O'Brien. So this now is where Taylor is going to have to push, Justin, because on the black mark tires. I had mentioned it with Chin and Blocker, but the gap to Ryan Otis in front is only about 1 and a bit seconds. Otis will make his way onto the black mark tires at the end of the stint, whereas Matt Taylor will have 10 laps to push for all he's worth in the closing stages on the red mark alternate tires.
And the interesting thing is, too, to keep in mind, Matt Taylor also had about 7-8 tenths of a second quicker pit stop compared to O'Brien. Henry Bennett was also in the same boat to be able to gain that extra time on the racetrack, so potentially thinking about the fuel margins as well for that pushing window he needs to have on the reds, possibly for later on in this race. So you have to think big picture, Arjuna, when it comes to this race and pace yourself in a lot of these cases. And right now it looks like Taylor is doing that, where he's trying to pace himself to the right marks to get himself a potential top 5.
And one thing that regular viewers of the Lionheart IndyCar series will note, Justin, is no Sage Karam in today's action. Of course, recently married his longtime partner. Congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Karam. But of course, the big news that Sage Karam is going to be driving a NASCAR Xfinity car. When they head to the Brickyard, he will be getting a chance to drive one of those stock cars on the road course. Be interesting to see how a strong competitor, both in the real world and virtual, takes to a brand new challenge.
I'm very curious too, because the organization that's Jordan Anderson Racing has been a team over the past couple months, Arjuna, who has put in some stellar runs, has had some really good talent behind the wheel as well. And for him to get that opportunity is absolutely huge. I'm really curious to see if he can execute on the Indianapolis road course. It's not going to be easy, to say the very least, in a stock car compared to open wheel. But it is a challenge I think he might be able to get a solid result in, especially at that track.
And of course, Sage has experience racing in sports cars as well, so not necessarily going to help him in terms of, actual driving, but just the learning experience on all of that goes along with a new challenge is something that Sage will be very, very familiar. I do think that I saw on social media that he got his first taste in the cockpit, at least today. Getting that assistance from an experienced competitor like Jordan Anderson will be great to see how Sage gets on there. Almost halfway through today's action. The gap out front has started to come down, at least for a few moments. At one point it was looking like it was about 3.6 seconds. Adam Blocker is putting up a fight, but Joshua Chin is looking very much in control of today's race.
Keep in mind, Blocker does have a little bit fresher tires with him pushing further on his stint, so that's coming into play a touch bit with the fall-off numbers. As well, it doesn't help that Chin struggled that past lap where he lost half a second and dropped to the 140s. So I think as long as Chin doesn't make any major mistakes throughout this run, he's in a really good spot. It's just a matter of how does Blocker fare out on the slightly fresher tires on the back end of the run.
And of course, Justin, when it comes to the team standings, we can't forget to mention that Adam Blocker, while being part of the Adrenaline Motorsports crew, is, as Alexis Newsom loses a couple of positions, I think maybe just running a little bit wide there. Adam Blocker runs in a team by himself, so for Joshua Chin and Connor Harrington, 1 and 3 in today's race, sitting at the top of the team standings, they'll be pretty happy with how things are looking for their chances.
Very happy, in fact, because it's gone right to plan, if anything, in terms of how they've been able to execute their marks. But factory backed as well. One of the teams making their way into the series we talked about with some of the drivers. We're with Newsom.
That looks like a slowdown penalty that needs to be served.
Yeah.
Let's spool it back a little bit further and take a look, because you don't usually break in towards turn number 1. It is flat out. It is full and fast commitment. Let's take a look at what happens to the 63. Of course, factory back, making a debut in this competition. My suspicion, Justin, is just running a bit wide through that final corner.
Yeah, and we've seen some aggressive saving when it comes to the time, or rather trying to back off from the time penalties.
Doesn't look like it. I'm a bit confused by that one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I thought it was strange, because you can see just how much slowed down. And something must be going on with Newsom, because Newsom's already coming in.
maybe a technical issue of some kind. That's going to promote a whole heap of drivers up positions, and heartbreak then for Alexis Newsom, because what a debut she was having here in the IndyCars. The first time we've got the opportunity to see her on the road courses, Justin, and well, we'll have to wait and see if she can roll herself back out onto track.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a terminal issue, possibly on the 63. That's already down into the pit box indeed, as Newsom will take the opportunity, looks like, to switch the compounds as well. Already a lengthy stop for Newsom. This is going to cost Newsom a ton of spots on the racetrack.
Her teammate Robert Malechka is doing pretty well, sniffing around the top 10 at least for now. We'll see how things go. 18 seconds stationary for Newsom. I wonder if maybe some damage, maybe from riding one of those curbs a little bit too hard, maybe something else. Meanwhile, battle for not just the race lead, but for the final podium position is starting to heat up. The gap between Chin and Blocker is down to about 3 and a bit seconds, 3.5 and closing. Meanwhile, Aaron Morgan putting the pressure onto Connor Harrington for that final step on the podium.
You can tell, I should say, he's put in a lot of work to be able to get himself from being right on the edge and trying to battle the car after 4 laps or so, to now being able to match the times with the fastest cars on the racetrack. You can tell, though, it's not going to be an easy task to close up completely, because there is that air wash that he's dealing with a little bit that's keeping that bubble for the time being. That's going to be a bit difficult to pop.
And the important thing is clambering himself and hopping onto those inside curves. Take a look at that number. That is the push-to-pass usages. I slightly got that wrong with our telestrator here. But he's only got four usages left to go, Justin. The car in front has 7. It's not just push-to-pass. It can be push-to-defend as well. We may see Connor Harrington taking full advantage of that in the closing stages.
Absolutely, and that gives the advantage to Harrington in turn to be able to have that extra burst of speed. So if I'm Morgan, I'm banking those for as late as I can towards the final couple laps of the race. If I'm Harrington, the second Morgan starts to try and get close, I'm utilizing those push-to-passes to defend.
Gap out front continues to come down. Adam Blocker has turned his engines into afterburner mode. And let's see what the Adrenaline Power Slide driver can do. Already set history, Justin. If he doesn't win today, you will go down in the record books as the only driver to win 4 races in a row across 9 seasons of competition here. But I know Blocker, I know he's competitive. He wants the 5th one here from Great Britain.
When I asked him about his expectations, in particular, his goals were to finish on the podium, have a clean race, at the minimum. He expected this to be a really competitive race, keep in mind, with how things are forming up with these gaps separating the field, but he also emphasized the importance of qualifying, and we've seen how important having the clean air has been for the race so far, where Chin has been able to take advantage and build that buffer. Now it's the matter, though, of, for Blocker, can he gain a lot of time, or can he out-strategize Chin here? Because we are approaching already that fuel mark to get towards the end of the next couple laps.
I think it's a pretty good time then for us to step away for a few moments. More than halfway through the action here from Great Britain in the GRAAFix Esports Silverstone Grand Prix presented by -273. Don't go anywhere. Continued coverage here live on RaceSpot TV right after this. Welcome back to Race Spot TV and coverage of the GRAAFix Esports Silverstone Grand Prix Round 11 in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Delighted to be joined, as always, by Justin Prince in the Race Spot TV commentary booth. And Justin, halfway through this race, more than halfway through this race, the final pit stops have just started to kick off. What a fun race it's been so far. Joshua Chin is in control of this 34-lap race.
He's been having the dominant pace. He's kept himself consistent. He's been able to keep himself steady when the tires have fallen off at the very edge of the limits. But now it's the matter, though, of how things play out at the end of the run, because we're getting towards that second cliffing point on the reds for the top drivers, and many of these competitors are wanting to get themselves to the pit lane, as we see, to be able to switch things up, and for some, push to the end, but for some of our leaders, get on the blacks to close things out.
We're watching Matt Taylor, Michael O'Brien, and Henry Bennett rolling off pit road. They have switched back from those primary black mark tires on to the red mark alternate. A little bit softer, a little bit more grip, but it wears just that little bit faster, especially when you've got some very high-speed corners. There you can see the left side of the screen. There are so many drivers that have still yet to come down and get those black mark tires on. With 12 laps to go, the gap between your race leaders, Justin, it's down to 3 seconds.
And closing. It's gotten within 2.6 seconds in the past few laps because of that cliffing point. It's just the tough part of Blocker needing to minimize mistakes because he's been losing some time again on corner exits. Similar mistake of what happened at the end of the last run. But Aaron Morgan's taking this opportunity to try and go for a different strategy here. Try and get himself to break away from Connor Harrington, possibly.
This is where the undercut will come in, Justin. It's what we saw the last time around, but because these drivers going onto the black mark tires, it's going to be less of a time advantage, I would say. I was trying to find the right words for it, but ultimately, the undercut isn't going to be as crucial because the tires will be a little bit harder. It takes longer to get them into their peak operating window. It's an interesting strategy call. Let's see how it works for the 48 car.
Indeed, especially keep in mind, though, that the drivers that started on the blacks immediately went towards the 1 minute 40 second bracket right from the get-go, and some of these drivers are already turning 1 minute 41 second lap times on the reds. So those tires have really reached the end of the limits for some of these competitors. I'm keeping my eye on Chin possibly in the next lap or two to see how things play out with that gap reducing by already almost a full second in the past 5.
They throw themselves through Maggots and Beckett's. Would not be surprised, Justin, if Adam Blocker follows in Joshua Chin. He doesn't necessarily, I would think, want to be on older tires, whether it be red tires versus the black tires. He will want to follow Joshua Chin and put the pressure on the 93 car.
I think that's going to be the possibility, too. It's just a matter of, can he follow in close enough? Because before, Blocker, I think, just couldn't respond quick enough, possibly, in that situation. If not, thought about trying to push on the slightly fresher tires to the end of this run. Now it's going to be the matter of how this all goes for drivers like Harrington, too, who are coming in to try and defend for third.
And this is crucial. You can see on the bottom portion of your screen, we will have the track map up. Aaron Morgan, that's the 48 car, coming in through Stowe, in towards that final section. 16, 17, and 18. It is an awfully slow complex of corners. Harrington up on the jacks. How long will it be for the private label Team Hype number 44 car? 8 seconds, about matching what Morgan has done, so it's going to be all determined about how that outlap went for Aaron Morgan. Here comes Harrington off of pit road. Here comes Morgan storming his way down into village, but it's too little too late. Harrington holds on. The pressure is going to be on. Those tires will be too cool for Harrington to defend.
It's going to be a tricky battle now, to say the very least. But I don't think this battle is quite over indeed, especially with the speed Morgan's shown throughout this entire race tonight. Look at that, though. Is that what I think it is in terms of, is that 7 or is that 2?
That is 2. It is going to be tough. We saw Morgan getting on the button on the outlap. Harrington responded. Harrington still has 5. of his usages to go as Joshua Chin, your race leader, makes his way onto pit lane as Adam Blocker will stay out there on track. Interesting to note, Justin, there is a bit of lap traffic in front of your defending series champion.
The traffic, though, immediately going over to the right side of the racetrack. So Blocker now has that clean air again. So it's looking like Blocker's committed to the strategy of trying to utilize slightly fresher tires to its advantage here. It's just a matter of, can he fully close up the gap to get himself to Chin?
This is going to be crucial. Can Chin execute on pit road? Ryan Otis is in behind the king of Chins. Here he goes up on the jack. 4 fresh Firestone tires. This time, they will be those Black Mark primary tires. 8.3 seconds stationary. Chin rolls himself off of pit road. Meanwhile, his teammate Jason Brophy has had something happen to the number 88 car. Let's go take a look at what's happened. It's coming in, I would think, through the final couple of corners. Spool up the RaceSpot TV replay machine.
Yeah, I think he just ended up spinning that car off into the sand. Yes, had a bit of a bobble going through the left-right part of the complex and just snapped it into the grass.
Right on board with Jason Brophy. And take a look here. It's a little bit too much speed into the corner, and I tell you what, he's lucky to still be pointing in the right direction. A second replay to take a look at, and it's for Alexis Newsom in the factory back, number 63. Same exact corner, Justin. Let's see what happens for your Lionheart Speedway Series multi-time winner.
Ends up looping into the back end, just losing the grip, carrying the speed through the corner, and we've seen that a couple times throughout the day today. Fortunate for Newsom, but as expected, Blocker having to come down, stretching it again to 13 laps on the window. So he'll have about 9 laps to try and get the job done here to close up the Chin.
Chin is working his way onto that back straightaway. You can see the right-hand corner of that track map coming in through Stowe. It's going to be Adam Blocker who feeds out behind, but of course the question is, how far behind will he be?
It's going to be close, I think, in terms of the timing. I'm curious if this lays out towards the 4-second bracket as similar with the undercut strategy playing out for Chin last time.
Oh, quick pit stop for Adam Blocker, 7.3 seconds stationary. It's not going to be close enough to be right on the tail end, but that gap will be down to about 1.5 seconds. The battle for the race lead is well and truly on.
You know what he did? I think Arjuna, he took a bit less fuel, being able to stretch it further. That might have been the game plan. Have a slightly lighter car, be able to go a little bit faster on the blacks here than what Chin can do, and have fresher tires by 1 lap. So that might be very critical here and put Chin back on the defensive as a result.
It's not just that, Justin. Look at the left side of your screen. Look at the push-to-pass advantage that Adam Blocker will have. 5 more usages. That gap is 1.1 seconds. I tell you what, Adam Blocker will be a man on a mission. I would not rule out that 5th consecutive victory.
And that is perfect. This is going to set things up very perfectly for Blocker. Talked about it earlier, having the opportunity to ride on behind and try and save those push-to-passes. I think he might have realized as the run went on that he might be able to try and play things out. A couple drivers had talked about the possibility of saving that little extra bit of fuel, and that's now really coming to play. But there is traffic being utilized for draft for Chin.
That's Tony Showen, who, of course, came together with Connor Harrington, who was leading the Indy Grand Prix. Oh my word! It's happened again! Joshua Chin might have some lasting damage from that one, but again, Tony Showen has been mixed up with your race leaders from private label Team Hype.
That is unbelievable to say the very least, and has to be some type of miscommunication there. It looked like Tony Showen was trying to move to the left side of the racetrack to let Chin go there. But Chin was already getting very close when it comes to that run coming off the corner. Wasn't expecting him to slow up.
It was, again, some miscommunication, and it's just awful timing, and maybe there's a bit of commentator's curse that's come down there, me bringing that point up at that exact moment, because you could see it was very, very just a checkup from Tony Showen. Let's see if we can ride rearwards, I should say, from the 31 car. You can see here, oh no! Instantly, Tony Showen, I think, is down on pit road, and as Lorenzo Bonder puts up in our YouTube chat, for once, it is not Lorenzo with the commentator's curse. Instead, Well, I got to get some piece of wood and make sure I'm knocking on that every time I talk about stuff here on track.
Well, right now, knock on wood, but Blocker has that opportunity to still push on forward here. Chin looks like his car is going to be okay, but that's going to definitely break up the rhythm for Chin with that situation and break a little bit of his focus.
Blocker uses one of those 9 push-to-passes. We are into the closing stages here from Silverstone. Oh boy, this will be fun, and I have a feeling Joshua Chin might just have enough here, Justin. 1.3 seconds was the gap. The black mark tires, they do hold their, how do you call it, their life a little bit more. They'll grip up just a little bit longer, and as opposed to being on the red mark tires with, you know, a couple of laps difference, things might not be looking so bad for Joshua Chin here.
He's still got that buffer, absolutely. So he's still in a good spot where he can try and defend. It's just a matter, though, of not making any mistakes and seeing how the tire wear fares out at the end of the run with that little bit of extra grip coming into play and how this could go out with the blacks, because some of the drivers on the blacks have shuffled towards those 141.5s by the end of their stints.
Both of them on the button the last time around, and I tell you what, oh, as Adam Blocker clambers over the inside curb, Blocker is going to have that advantage, Justin, of having the options as to how he wants to ration it. Does he stay in the draft, avoid burning the push-to-passes at this point in time, or does he try something different? Henry Bennett, I think, has spun around at a very weird place. This is coming down out of turn number 3. And of course, this is crucial when it comes to the team's championship. Robert Malechka will throw it down the inside. And in the British Racing Green 007, I should say just 07 here in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Let's take a look at what happens here. It's going to be just lining up the rear tires, you'd have to assume.
I think he actually got in the dirt with the full side of the right tires. And watch this on the onboard and watch the right front tire, because he ends up going fully into the dirt. That's enough to kick the car around on this corner exit.
Let's take a look. You can just see a little bit deep, and oh, yep, into the gravel he goes and doesn't get the memo in time that he's got to lift off or avoid applying full throttle. And now, well, the reason I'm a little bit distracted, Justin, is that gap out front is down to just half a second as we head down into Village Complex.
This is definitely going to be nerve-wracking if you're Chin now, because that strategy call from Blocker seems to be now working to a decent spot. Now it's the matter of trying to defend as hard as he can here. Trying to break up the toe, as what a send by Blocker.
I think Blocker made contact. You can see instantly there is damage to the front wing of your championship winner last time around.
He really went late on the brakes that time to close up the gap. That was one of his best opportunities so far this run. I think right now he needs to wait until the Hainer Straight, though, to be able to get as close as he can. Try and build up the run coming out through Beckettson to Chapel, and then try and utilize that corner exit to be able to get a run side by side.
I don't know which car is more damaged. Of course, we saw Chin's front left tire disappear for a moment before the iRacing gods decided A-OK and Joshua Chin would be able to finish out this race. But you can see there is definite physical damage to the front end of Adam Blocker's car, and it's going to be difficult now, I would think. 5 laps to go at the line for Blocker to try and get this pass done.
Now this is going to be an intriguing closing few laps, to say the very least. With these cars having close calls, to say the very least. Blocker again clattering the curbing.
Here we go. 5 laps on the board here. And it's coming down to the wire. Can Adam Blocker make it 5 wins on the bounce? Does look as though that front wing might just have made its way back into some sort of factory fresh condition. I don't know, Justin. I am a little bit concerned if I'm Blocker, who gets on the button this time around. Chin is going to defend all the way to the inside. Jinx to the outside does your defending series champion. Long way around, nothing doing, but watch for the over-under here.
Blocker trying to build up that run to try and diamond off the corner. Good defense by Chin, though, able to check him up a touch.
Blocker gets back on the button. Does he try it down into Kopp's inside line? Boys, remember what happened here when F1 visited in 2021. It is Blocker to the front, but Chin, can he make it side by side into Maggots and Beckett? Incredible action and incredible respect between these two cars. Blocker leaves Chin just enough space, and Chin takes the race lead back.
Very well respected right there with that move, but Blocker's got the advantage down the straight.
Here he goes, back on the button. They are now both equal. 3 push-to-passes left to go. Through Stowe Corner, can Chin hang on? He will have the outside line for that last section. It's Blocker to the front. It is Blocker to the lead. It is not over yet. 4 laps still to go as Alexis Newsom puts in the fastest lap of today's race. But all eyes focus out front. All eyes focus on Adam Blocker and Joshua Chin.
Can Chin bounce back is the big question with how things have fared out, because the draft seems to be playing where they're equalizing out a little bit here.
Chin got on the button coming out of the last corner, Justin. That was interesting. That is very interesting to burn that push to pass. Now, at a disadvantage once more is the king of Chins. Blocker responds. Blocker gets on the button now.
I think Blocker's trying to run away with that clean air just like Chin tried to earlier on in this race.
This is going to be fun because these two are very much on the limit of adhesion right now, Justin. You can see from the body language of these cars as they come out of Luffield onto this old pit straightaway. These two guys, they have dueled it out so many times before here on the iRacing service. I think Adam Blocker might have this one in control.
It's well played, to say the very least, to try and push as long as he could on the stint, get a little bit lighter of a car, and now he's utilizing that as well as the little bit fresher tires here to be able to build up this buffer. Chin has lost 3/10 this sector.
And I wonder if there's that damage that Lorenzo Bonder was mentioning in the YouTube chat. Just a little bit of front wing damage might be upsetting the balance on the 93 car, in control for so much of this race. But maybe Adam Blocker had the right strategy in his mind, was laying back, just waiting for this final action of the race. And it will be 3 laps to go at the line. It will be 3 laps to go before Adam Blocker might secure a historic victory here from the home of British Motorsports.
And the incredible thing is, remember, he was 4 seconds back at one point. Chin looked to be in a good spot, but then that tire fall started to come into play on the Reds-Blacks call towards the middle of the stint, or the middle stint rather, on the second stint of Reds. And that's now come into major play for how this has worked out, right into Blocker's hands to be able to close up that deficit, be able to gain that time back by taking less fuel in the pit lane, and in turn being able to push hard to get himself past Chin.
And it's not that there isn't other battles going on as Ryan Otis gets on the button. Let's go check in there. He's side by side with Matt Taylor down the inside. The Lionheart Retro Series champion in 2020 locks up, almost runs into the path of Matt Taylor. And guess who's being brought into the equation? Mike Rasmus, up 5 positions already, Justin, is searching for a potential top 4 finish.
And it's been a quiet race for Mike Rasmus as well coming into this battle. We haven't talked about him all night. He's just been slowly and consistently hitting his marks, running the 148s right now to be able to get himself through this mark. And keep in mind, though, he does have older tires compared to Ryan Otis, so it's not going to be easy to try and get around the 95.
Incredible stuff. What a race that Silverstone has delivered, and it is not over by any stretch of the imagination. Still only 0.4 of a second between your race leaders. That was Chris Lanini going for a bit of a trip on his return to the Lionheart IndyCar Series through the gravel at turns 16 and 17. But now pressure is on. Just under 12 kilometers to go, and it might be Adam Blocker has only led about 4 laps of this race, Justin. He might take home the victory, but at the end of the day, King of Chins has had a stellar drive, and whether or not Blocker takes the championship lead that much further, it's already a almost insurmountable gap, if you ask me, given the consistency we've seen from the number 1 car. But in the team's championship, the stranglehold that Adrenaline Motorsports has had at the top of Lionheart competition might be coming to a close. Chin and Harrington, teammates, they're running second and third.
Very impressive day for Harrington, where he's been able to break away from Morgan and company on his strategy window, so things have worked out very well for Harrington. But the thing is, it's going to get intriguing for this final lap or so still between Blocker and Chin, down to one push to pass each to be able to try and utilize that for the final lap as one more car round.
That's Adam Frazier. We saw him trying to defend on the black mark tires early, and once more Village has claimed yet another victim, but down the hangar straight in towards Stowe. Let's see how this is gonna go. It will be white flag in the air. It'll be 5.8 kilometers for Adam Blocker to hang on. Each of these drivers, Justin, have one push to pass left to burn.
And the interesting thing is going to be where they try to utilize them. Blocker's been trying to utilize it coming out of the arena down into Brooklands to be able to pull away by half a second. It's the interesting marker where Chin elects to use it for this final lap.
Here we go. White flag in the air. One more trip here around Silverstone Circuit. Chin sends it deep under the brakes. Now, going to get slightly offline. Blocker gave him just enough racing room. Chin took full advantage. Chin is back in the lead. He gets on the button. Adam Blocker does not respond. I think Blocker's move and Blocker's opportunity, Justin, will come in towards that final straight in towards Stowe.
And Blocker has scrapes on his front wing as Chin locks up the tire.
These guys, it is all kicking off here. The gloves are well and truly off. And now, half a lap to go. Chin almost loses control down this old pit straight in towards Cops Corner. What's going to happen this time around?
Well, this is going to be close in this section.
Look at the confidence that Blocker had. He tried to send it deep, but unable to keep the car under control and roll his momentum. Here we go. This is the drag race you have all been waiting for. Chin has run out of push to pass. Blocker gets on the button and in towards the draft. Chin is all the way down to the white line. He is going to force it the long way around for Adam Blocker. The quest for Lionheart history will continue. Chin holds on. One more corner to go. In towards turn number 16. Look at the defense from Joshua Chin. Adam Blocker sends it deep under the brakes. Adam Blocker to the front of the field where he's been turned by Joshua Chin. Carnage and chaos, that's all you can say. But here at Silverstone, the GRAAFix Esports Silverstone Grand Prix by -273 will be won by Adam Blocker. A fifth consecutive victory. It was not easy, and I believe the tempers will flare.
Wow. Just wow. I think the tempers definitely flared coming out of Vale. Absolutely incredible circumstances there in the final couple corners with that bolt send and then that contact.
I tell you what, Justin, I'm still in a bit of disbelief here. Let's go ahead and right now, take a look at this final lap. It is going to start in through Village, and I tell you what, Joshua Chin took full advantage out of this corner to see the opportunity. Adam Blocker trying to just run wide, maximize the exit of the corner. Chin took full advantage, and from there, you talked about some scrapes that Adam Blocker had. I think maybe that's where things kicked off.
I think that's where the temper started to really flare up and where they said, you know what, the gloves are off when it comes to this fight. Because Blocker got himself in a good spot with Chin locking up that front tire, which allowed him to get himself close and nearly making contact. You're pressurizing Chin into a mistake that got him loose off the corner.
And then watch here. This is where, of course, Verstappen and Hamilton came to blows just a couple of weeks ago. Chin all the way to the inside, making it nowhere to go other than the long way around for Adam Blocker. You could see just a bit deep. Had to check himself up to avoid getting a slowdown penalty. Blocker knew his run would be out of this Maggots and Beckett's complex, but the aero wash has been such a big factor, Justin. He wasn't able to get the move done here, but the door was open to the final corner, and the door he opened wide right there.
You had to pry it open a little bit there to be able to send it. And it was going to be tight in the first place because he didn't get the best of runs that he needed down the hangar straight. But you'll see Chin leaves that little door of opportunity And right there is where the tempers start to flare.
I'm going to watch my words here, because it was an incredible fight between these two cars. Yes, it's a late move from Joshua Chin, but I tell you what, I think he's going to finish this race in 24th position. There's one more look. I want to get the onboard with the King of Chins. That's what I'm trying to do right here. You can look. That's not the right car. That's the right car. You can see deep under the brakes from Adam Blocker. There is contact for sure. But there's nothing that you can say about that, Justin, other than Joshua Chin just drives through Adam Blocker.
Yeah, that is the main thing you can really say. This isn't like stock cars where you can give the bump and run. These cars get significant damage if you hit like that. And in turn, it hurt Chin more than it hurt Blocker.
Incredible. I mean, scenes, if I'm going to make some memes, is the word I would use. Absolute scenes here from Silverstone. And at the end of the day, that's really mixed things up when it comes to our final race results. Let's take a look at this unofficial race results presented by Carnox. And I say unofficial because who knows what else happened there. We were so focused on the battle out front that we really don't know if there was anything else that Race Control is going to have to take a look at. 4 seconds is the gap between Adam Blocker and Connor Harrington. 1 and 2 in the championship. Harrington will be, I'm sure, a bit disappointed as to how things ended with his teammate, but he'll be happy to be up there on the second step of the podium. Matt Taylor, Justin, no commentator's curse from you. You did say that Taylor might have a very good day, and indeed rounds out the podium, but look at those gaps between Taylor, Morgan, and Otis. Incredible. Between Taylor and Morgan, less than 1/10 of a second at the line. Ryan Otis only about 4/10 back on the edge of the top 5. Mike Rasmussen, your Lionheart Retro Series points leader. He'll end up in 6th with Michael O'Brien on series debut, finishing in 7th. Brian Carey for Adrenaline Motorsports Red finishes in 8th position, with Robert Malechka, another debutant, in 9th. Henry Bennett, always driving that British Racing green car, will round out your top 10 positions in what was a hectic race for him. Lionel Kalisto, one of your biggest chargers, actually your biggest charger on the day, up 9 positions from where he started, was very much a hard charger at the start of the action. In 12th, Brian Beard, with Chris Fowler up 6 positions into 13th. Jay Brandt 7 positions gained to 14th. Andrew Kinsella, a century of Lionheart IndyCar races, he rounds out the top 15. With Adam Frazier, Jason Brophy, Matt Houston, and Stefan Larkamp 16th through 19th. Scott Holmes on the edge of the top 20. Alexis Newsom, a difficult debut for her, but of course, the Lionheart Speedway Series returns next Monday. Watch out for Newsom in that competition. Tyler Graf, 22nd, Christopher Reagan, 23rd, and Joshua Chin is classified in 24th, the last car 1 lap down. First car 1 lap down, I should say. Chris Lanini, Barrett Rolfe, Mike Rigney all finishing that 1 lap down as well, with Tony Showen, of course, involved in contact with your race leaders in 28th position. What a day. What a day. The first ever Lionheart race from the home of British motorsports, and it did not disappoint. So let's make our way towards the HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX. Makes a premier gaming gear like the legendary Ultra Comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. Let's dive our way straight in towards HyperX victory lane and talk to a Lionheart trendsetter, a Lionheart record breaker. Your 5th consecutive win on the season, Adam. That's well and truly a streak worth a champion. But really, the first thing on my mind is I have to ask about that drama on the last lap of the race.
I mean, drama is an understatement. Yeah, this race was really good. I think the first couple stunts, Chen and I kind of did the opposite things. Like the first stunt, I got behind on the adjustments on the car and really just killed my rear tires, and yeah, I mean, I dropped back a lot, lost way too much time, and then I think maybe the same thing kind of happened to him, because I was able to catch him a lot there, and then I knew the overcut 1 lap going on to blacks would be good, and it was, and I came out pretty close to him, and And yeah, I mean, the first battle we had was really good. I mean, you know, I used 3 push passes on that up to get past him, but I mean, we went wheel to wheel into Brooklands, out of left field, through cops. Then he crossed me over. We went wheel to wheel through Maggins and Beckett's. Like, you have to have you know, massive respect to be able to do that, especially racing for the lead. So, you know, it was really clean up to that point. And then, yeah, I mean, the last lap, he passed me going into turn 4, which it's just one of those, like, if you're the leader there, it just kind of sucks, because if I defend that move, then he passes me down the straight into Brooklands, and if I don't, I just had to hope that he wasn't going to dive it, and I was going to clear him. But I mean, he was kind of smart and he took the opportunity, and I was kind of worried about that. But yeah, I mean, I should have known he would go for that. But yeah, I just left him space, and we actually made a little bit of contact there, but it was fine. It was a clean move, and then yeah, I kind of did the same thing back to him in Vale. He compromised Stowe more than he probably should, and yeah, I just sent it up the inside, and I mean, I made the corner, and then he tried to dump me. So.
Well, let's talk about more positive things, I guess, Adam. Heading now into the second half of the season, it's been an incredible start to 2021 for you here. I mean, how do you think things will continue? Of course, you and I have talked about how your schedule with your real-world duties trackside with the NTT IndyCar Series might affect your availability for some of these races. I know there's a swing of races in September that you think you might have to miss, but you will be racing from the Lone Star State. What are you expecting from the second half of the season?
Yeah, just gonna try to keep doing the same thing. Really wasn't expecting to win, you know, this many races in a row. It's just crazy. And yeah, you just see tonight how hard it is to win races. So, feel pretty good about New Texas and a lot of the tracks coming up. So, yeah, I just want to keep doing what I've been doing and should be in good shape. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody, especially Chen, for the great racing, and all the league organizers for putting in the league, and you guys for the broadcast, and the team for all the support.
One final question, Adam. You and I mentioned it on the broadcast. The last time the iRacing IndyCar Open Series came here about, I think it was 15 months ago, in that open setup competition. You and I had some incredible fun battling wheel to wheel. What was it like with a fixed setup here today? Because that always does mean for a slightly different dynamic. No rear ARB adjustments for one, for example, but I'm sure you were working those in-car tools to try and get the most out of these cars.
Honestly, the main thing was just the new tire model more than anything. When you were in traffic, in a way, it was easier to manage the slow speed corners because the rears weren't getting so hot in the high speed corners because you had understeer. But then obviously, like, you had to deal with the high speed dirty air. So I don't know. It was just tricky. But actually, like, honestly, on the blacks, it raced pretty similar to the old tire model in terms of like the battle we had. You could pass into like 3 or 4 corners on this track, and I think Shen and I kind of proved it. So it might have actually been more than 3 or 4. So yeah, it was just a really good race.
Well, I think your mom was watching out there, so I'm sure she is thrilled for you, Adam. Go off and celebrate. Looking forward to seeing you next time out then from the Lone Star State.
Yep, see ya.
So that was HyperX Victory Lane, and for a 5th time in a row, Adam Blocker finds himself at the front of the field. Let's talk to a driver who I'm sure is a bit surprised to now be ending up in 2nd position. Connor Harrington is standing by with Justin Prince.
Well, compared to what happened up at the front, bit calmer of a race for you, Connor. How are you feeling? 2nd step on the podium.
Yeah. You know, 2nd place always nice. I don't think I had the pace tonight to keep up with the 2 guys in front. Just not super comfortable with the setup. I honestly haven't gotten a chance to take a look at what happened between Josh and Adam up there. So I don't know. You know, a 2nd is good. It's a points finish we can put in the bank, and we can move on.
It was talked a little bit about trying to get used to the tires by Blocker for one of the challenges when it comes to racing with the custom fixed setup here. What was the challenge for you to try and get yourself used to the feel of it and race at a track such as Silverstone with this big size?
I had no feel on the brake. I just felt like anytime I would try to attack the brake pedal more than 3 laps into a run, it would just instant lock up. So I just kind of had to just kind of bide my time and just make sure I finish. Yeah, I mean, the tire fall off, it is what it is, but just once the tires got warm, and you just had to set the car up so tight to save the rear that you would just end up locking a wheel or just plowing, and I just couldn't figure it out. I had the 1 lap pace. I think I could have put together a lap that would have put me on pole, but over the course of the stint, I don't think I had that.
When it comes to this race, though, it's still a solid finish and a solid points day. What does this mean for the organization, knowing you're in a good spot on the team standing side in particular, entering the second half of the campaign?
Yeah, I mean, anything can still happen for the Drivers' Championship. Still in second, still have a chance to maybe run Blocker down if some things happen. We haven't had much in the terms of luck go our way this year, so you never know. Second half of the season, there's a lot to play for. Our private label Team Hype team has been fantastic all year, and we've been really strong, and we haven't had the good end of the breaks. So hopefully for the last 10 races here, we can turn that around, and maybe a little bit of good fortune can come our way.
Thank you very much for the time, Connor.
Yep. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
So that was Connor Harrington. Next up, final step of the podium. I'm sure it was slightly unexpected, but Justin Prince did predict that Matt Taylor would have a pretty good run here today, and Justin is standing by with the driver of the 8 car.
Yes, indeed. And for you, Matt, it took a last lap, last corner pass to get around Aaron Morgan, in fact, as the race leaders were having a hectic time. Talk us through your battle with Aaron Morgan in the final few corners.
Oh man, that entire last stint, I was doing everything I could to complete a pass or get up there, and man, it was hard to set up a pass. And I got just enough of a run. I had that last push to pass that I was able to get alongside of him, and he took the inside, and we both overdrove the corner a little bit. His was just a little farther, I guess, and I was able to sneak around the outside, and then didn't even realize that we were going to end up battling for a podium until I crossed the line and I saw third. That was a great drive, and I'm really happy with the result there.
It was an incredible drive, to say the very least, +4 for you as well throughout the day. How was it trying to nail the strategy and make sure you kept the tires underneath it, because the fall off was about up to 2 seconds for some of the drivers today?
So in practice and then in the race, my fall off was not anywhere near that bad. In practice, I think the slowest I ended up on the alternates at the end of a stint was right around a 41 flat, 41.5. And watching and looking at some of the lap times from other guys, I did feel like I had a huge advantage there, and unfortunately didn't qualify well enough. I think if I'd have qualified better, I could have actually been up at the front with Blocker and Chin and battling this week. But once I was able to get in some clean air and show a little bit of that pace and that long run stint, and then just hounding Aaron there at the end on those old alternates, I feel really good moving forward.
You mentioned you're feeling good looking forward. A lot of momentum with how you fared out in the past few weeks of the Lionheart competition. How do you carry that momentum forward now for the second half of the IndyCar Series season?
Yeah, this is I've made some adjustments to my rig a little bit and done some fine tuning, and I'm finding a much better feel the last couple of weeks, really starting with in the Retro Series at Sonoma, and now carrying that through. And all week I saw I had good pace and I was right there, so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for these podium finishes or better down the stretch.
A strong run, Matt. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're seeing some of that side-by-side action with Aaron Morgan and Matt Taylor in the closing stages of this race. But, I mean, Justin, we were so focused on the action and the drama out front that we really, like you said, didn't even get to see that last lap pass. As we head out of Silverstone into the second half of the season, all I can say is, the next half, you better be watching here live on RaceSpot TV, because things are about to kick off.
Yeah, that's an understatement, especially with how things fared out to close off this race. It was a thrilling finish, to say the very least, but we got some thrilling tracks when it comes to Texas Motor Speedway can bring some great racing and some great strategies. Phillip Island, a great road course that brings plenty of challenges as well, especially with some of the middle sector corners. And of course, a Triple Crown for valuable points on the line where drivers are going to need to execute if they want to be able to battle for the championship. The next few weeks are going to be crazy. And it's going to be exciting to see how things fare out in the Blocker versus Chin battle now from here on forward.
And I tell you what, Adam Blocker proves today that, well, Lewis Hamilton is not the only driver that can win on just 3 wheels here from the Silverstone track. What a first trip to Silverstone we had here today. And of course, the Lionheart Retro Series will return later this year. It will be great to see the Lotus 79s get a run around one of the best tracks across of the globe, not just here on the iRacing service. Before we wrap up here live on RaceBot TV, it is time to thank the partners that make all of this happen. Let's start with Butt Kicker, because for sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit as the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary Ultra Comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders.
Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit www.simexperience.com.
Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code minus273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders.
Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than DMLC Racing Channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel.
And it's not just them, but so many more partners that make all of this happen. To learn more about these names on your screen, to find out more about the 3 competitions the Lionheart sanctioning body puts on, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. You can also join the series Discord to keep up to date with the latest comings and goings in the virtual paddock. Before we say goodbye, just a reminder to stay tuned on social media for all your esports action. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are where you can keep up to date with the latest news from the Lionheart Racing Series, while ESTV has you covered for your esports needs. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Hit that red subscribe button on YouTube to follow along with RaceBot TV, and hit the bell to be notified every single time we go live with the great sim racing series that we get to cover. You can also follow us across of Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram for all the great action that we get to cover on a day-to-day basis. Well, Silverstone has held so much action here. It's been a race that at one point we thought was well and truly in control of the King of Chins, but Adam Blocker continues to set history. 5 wins on the trot, and your defending champion shows no sign of stopping soon. The Lionheart IndyCar Series will be back in 2 weeks' time as we head to the Lone Star State and the Texas Motor Speedway for round 12 of the championship. But if you enjoy Lionheart action, stay tuned this coming Monday, August the 2nd, as the Lionheart Speedway Series heads to New Hampshire for round 11. Then on Thursday, August 5th, come to New Hampshire with the Lotus 79s as the Lionheart Retro Series looks to bounce back from a topsy-turvy race from Twin Ring Motegi. On behalf of the entire team at RaceBot TV, thank you for tuning in here today. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. I've been joined by the wonderful Justin Prince. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time from the Lone Star State. For now, so long and goodbye.